Hello and welcome to the We All Follow podcast. My name is Matt Fox. You can find me on X at Big Match Pro AFC. And we have a wonderful show today. I'm super excited. We had game week 1. We had Liverpool, Arsenal, and City all winning 2-0 against mid-table teams. We had Spurs going full Spurs against Leicester City, who was newly promoted. We had Jamie Vardy, being Jamie Vardy. Peak Barclays is back, baby. I have an awesome crew with me today. Today, I am joined by, first, the man, the myth, the legend, the man who's scouting players 6 months before they're actually transferred. Ben, welcome back to the show.
Well, how you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. It was an awesome week. I'm glad to be back in the flow of the Premier League. It feels really good. Joining us also is the man who is educating us about the Marion Golf Course, Nigel. Welcome back, Nigel.
Yeah. Good evening. Yeah, it's good. Marion's a good. Marion's a basket case of the golf course. That's a little inside joke.
I see what you did there. We have the man who's really working hard on getting his name above the top of the guest list, Sean Miller, back 2 weeks in a row. Great to have you, bud.
How are you? Yeah, I'm right around the corner from the Marion Golf Course here, and they're hosting 2030, 2040, and 2050. So if anybody wants to come, make sure you get out there, and I'll get you some. Maybe I'll get you an Airbnb.
All right. Sean's got the hookup for the Marion Golf Course that Nigel will most certainly be attending. And we got two new guests today. Welcome, Lewis, our Brighton correspondent. Welcome in.
Yes, hello, everyone. Happy to be here. Can't wait.
Awesome. Thanks for jumping on. And we also have Martin, who's representing Villa today in advance of the Arsenal-Villa game. Martin, welcome.
Cheers. Thanks for having me on. And sláinte.
All right. So today, we've got a busy day. Please follow us on X at We All Follow Pod. You can get all the podcasts and put your notifications bell on so you get the notification as soon as the pod drops. After I edit it, of course. And we had an amazing game week 1, like I mentioned previously. We had some big moments. One thing that I wanted to start off with was Danny Welbeck, who scored in, I believe it's 15 consecutive Premier League seasons, which is pretty amazing. So, Ben, what was your highlight for game week 1?
I mean, it came back in style, didn't it? There was a lot of big moments. I think for me, there's a few things with like the teams that came up. Leicester getting an unexpected draw. I think Ipswich were really good in that first half. They really lacked the quality to make the difference. And then they're going to see the difference. You know, in the Championship, you can get away with it. Premier League, you can't. But since then, they've added about 27 signings. So, you know, they're looking to really attack that as well. But it just kind of had that feeling like it was very just business as usual. Everyone got straight in and the big teams winning straight away. We're all even right now. And there's some really big wins for some of the teams, like from Man City's point of view, from Villa as well. So there's a few there where they came up against tougher teams, but also, for example, in the Arsenal game, Wolves, I think they looked really sharp. I think some of the teams that don't have guys that were on international break, they're probably going to play better than the others early on. So we might get a couple more surprise results, but right for now, it was pretty much everything was quite expected, I'd say.
It was a good one for sure. Nigel, what you got? What was your highlight for game week 1?
I mean, you've got a grip. The oil check by your Mosquera on Gabriel Jesus was something what we wondered why he'd been booked. Jesus, I'm at the other end of the ground next to the away fans, and I thought, why is he being booked? And then when I saw it after him that Mosquera had done a quick oil check on him, I was like, wow, that is crazy. But to be fair, and I don't want to steal Martin's thunder on Villa, but the highlight of the weekend for me was John Duran spent all summer throwing up the irons, on social media, and then goes and scores against West Ham for Villa and celebrates like he's like 100% Villa. I'm like, what's going on here? What is going on there? So for me, that's got to be the highlight of the weekend, is John Duran being the most duplicitous character ever in Premier League football. So his name should be Duplicitous Duran from now on, not John Duran.
Classic. Always love a good turncoat. Sean, what did you have for me on game week 1?
Well, I mean, Friday was my birthday. It was a big milestone birthday for me, and we decided to
Happy birthday, mate.
Thank you. We decided to have a party, watch party, and about 60 minutes into the watch party, I was just shaking my head saying I should have just stayed home and watched it by myself. I was getting so mad. And then Xerxes scored, and I was running around the restaurant. It was pretty cool. But other than that, I think I thought Newcastle, they went the man down and then found a goal and won a game there that really, they could have dropped points to Southampton. I thought actually Southampton played pretty well. To come through that, man down and win that game, I thought was pretty big for them, especially the way they ended last season. So, I'll go with Newcastle there.
Big win for Newcastle with down to 10 men. Lewis, like I mentioned earlier, we had Danny Welbeck scoring for his 15th consecutive season, which is crazy because it feels like he's been here forever. But what was your highlight of the weekend?
I mean, of course, as a Brighton fan, a massive win at Everton is my highlight, obviously. Top of the league currently going into game week 2. It was nice to see us play a bit more direct compared to how we was with De Zerbi. Not too much faffing around with it at the back, but yeah, obviously Matoma back scoring was a big moment for Brighton as well. But just the whole team around was a really good watch, and obviously Danny Welbeck keeps scoring. Hopefully he can keep it up as well, and hopefully we can stay top of the league.
We'll see about that, my friend. Martin, what do you have for me for game week 1?
Well, multiple things happened, didn't they? Obviously, Nigel took my thunder by saying John Duran, but we call him Chaos Duran. We don't really go by that name. We call him Chaos. But if I have to give one, I have to say one that's off the pitch, actually, with Chelsea's coach, Enzo, saying that, he's not working with 42 players. He's working with 21. And now, in retrospective, right, you might think it's a bit of a circus show. But I kind of understand his reasoning as well. He doesn't want to be working with too many players. He wants to shift some. He's saying Sterling to go, Lukaku, Chilwell, Gallagher was gone. He's making a mass exodus like not a lot of Chelsea coaches have done in previous time under Todd Bowley. So clearly it goes to show, clearly it goes to show that he wants to get rid of players. And I kind of respect it in a way, because there's a lot of memes and jokes about Chelsea's dressing room. I've seen the video in the gym. It looked like there was no room at all. The canteen is everyone sitting next to each other, crowd. It's like COVID didn't exist for years or something, So I think that's a highlight for me, just something that was off the pitch. Or you can go with Jamie Vardy saying, I've won a Premier League. Just Jamie Vardy being back is just fantastic for the Premier League. I mean, a bit of shithouse in the Premier League is what you need.
Jamie Vardy, Premier League legend, Jamie Vardy, who drank a Red Bull coming out of the tunnel to come on for the second half. Like, that man is a maniac. I'm not sure, with all of the allegedly cocaine and Red Bulls that this guy has done, how his heart is still in one piece is a minor miracle. But that was just like peak the whole situation. You know what I mean? It's like, reminds me of the season when they went and did the unthinkable and won the league. But just bringing it all back is it's exciting, it's fun, and he's a character, right? And like, obviously we watch sports for the games, but we also watch sports for the storylines, right? Like, there's a reason why people watch WWE, and it's because they have amazing writers and amazing storylines. So I'm definitely here for the characters as well. So that was super exciting. Game week 1, any last thoughts, anybody?
Just, I mean, the one thing what also on Sunday, Brentford leaving out Ivan Toney, and being like, yeah, we're not going to play him. We think he's going to go, but then knowing that Saudi had not agreed a fee and that he couldn't agree a fee there and didn't play him, and they've actually kind of moved on from him now, because I thought they looked decent with Sade and Mbeumo and Wissa as the front three. So is Ivan Toney now resigned to the bench and possibly out? I mean, we know why Arsenal aren't interested. I think maybe other teams are a bit wary about the background now, and maybe he's stuck. I mean, like I said it in November. Manchester United. He was on Manchester United's radar in November for this summer, but they only wanted him if there was no bidding war. Man United in this last week, and we'll move on to transfers later. Man United this last week could end up with Ivan Toney. But yeah, I just thought that was. I mean, I'm surprised Brentford got the win against Palace. I thought Palace would be strong, but yeah, without Toney, they was fine.
I would say that was the standout, like, surprise win out of all of them, because I think a lot of people kind of had Palace down as a bit of a dark horse to maybe get into Europe or something. And that start, against Brentford, and it wasn't. That was deserved. Like, I thought Brentford were really good. I was watching the game, like, waiting for Palace to really get into it, and they just couldn't. Brentford were just beating them physically. And Mbeumo and Wissa, they're both so underrated in this league. Like, if they were playing for other teams, they'd get a lot more praise, I think.
I think
Absolutely.
Brentford and Villa.
Go ahead.
Villa were the other one. Villa was just a great. I mean, that was a great result for Villa because West Ham. You look at West Ham signings and the team what they could field. West Ham. Everyone's in West Ham's top 8. I've got them in my top 8. I've got Palace in mine. I think Villa. I got Villa as 6. I thought Villa were going to struggle this season with the extra football, and I thought that was a tough away game. But they got a win.
Yeah.
And
I'll explain to you later on why I don't think Villa will be 6. But
Villa were great in the first half.
Yeah, I'll explain later on.
Villa were great in that first half.
Yeah, but what I will say is, and correct me, I don't know if it's just me, but Onana at Everton didn't seem tall, but for some reason going to Everton looked like 7 foot everything. I was there at the West Ham game. I'm like, he's towering over everybody. Yet for some reason at Everton, he's an average height. So was it like a height requirement or something to sign for Everton?
Yeah, there's a Sean Dyche height requirement. Absolutely.
Yeah. And one thing I would say with that is there's 2 things I think Villa needed. It was depth and to add more physicality, and Onana in midfield. I'm like, well, as soon as I saw that, I was like, going up against a midfield of Onana and Kamara, when they play against like a big one of the big 6 teams or something, that is hard to get through. Like, that's a really solid midfield. No. And then you've got Tielemans, McGinn. There's literally so many, and Barrenechea has one that a lot of people are sleeping on, but he's really good as well. So like there's some serious depth there now. I like the squad. I still think there's probably 1 or 2 they need, but yeah, it's looking good.
Yeah, like my prediction in our podcast was that I have Villa to actually finish 3rd in the league. Now, reason being, and I have a very good reason for it, right? Now, I took Man City and Arsenal out of this equation, right? Because I feel like they're just levels above everybody, and I have Arsenal to win the league. So don't get your hopes up just yet, right? Now, with Villa being 3rd, right? I think Liverpool, they're going to go through a transition with Arne Slot. They haven't signed anybody, okay? You've Man United. Now, no disrespect, Sean, but this FA Cup win is not the FA Cup win a lot of Man United fans might think it is, because you weren't particularly great against Fulham. Against any other team in that league, I feel like they come away with something. You got Newcastle, who hasn't signed anybody either. The project seems to be fading away. Chelsea, I'll be here all day. I'm just going to say it's a circus. You got West Ham, who I think will be up there with the signings that they've made. Spurs' record against the top 6 teams has never been great. When you look at the games against the top 3 of last year, they only picked up 3 points, where Villa picked up 10 points from them teams last year. So I think with the depth that we have now, and I know a lot of people go into Champions League and everything else, but before Christmas last year, before we had injuries, we were 2nd in the league and we finished top of the Conference League. So we actually showed that we can compete when everybody is fit in 2 different competitions. So I feel like for us to finish 3rd, it's just a progression. Now, do I feel like that's going to be like a 3-horse title race? No, I still think it's going to be 2, because Arsenal and Man City are just so far ahead of everybody else at this current time. But that's why I think that's what's going to happen for Villa to finish 3rd and progress, because Unai Emery loves being under the radar. He loves being the underdog, because as Villa fans, we don't like being favourites. We hate it. We love being the underdog. We love going into something that, no one's expecting to finish 3rd. Right, we'll go and do it then. That's why I think we're going to finish 3rd, because of the other team situations.
Just on that as well, you mentioned about the underdog thing. I think throughout the team, there's a lot of players with so much desire. You think of like McGinn, even Martinez in goal, and the types that are going to step up in the big games, and obviously Emery as well. I think that there's something about them. I'm like, I don't think you're going away at all. Whereas there's other teams. There's so many changes. I think there's a good level of stability right now to build on. And yeah, Emery's had his criticism, but I think it's been unfair. I think he's a top manager, and I think
Yeah.
I think they'll do well under him.
Just
I think-
to draw a line on this,
Go ahead.
but I understand that you played the extra games last year in the Conference League, but turning out a few changed players in the Conference League to turning out a changed team at Real Madrid, that's not going to cook. So if you've got Real Madrid away, you're taking your first team, and then they've got intensity of a Bernabeu game. Then they might have a game against Man City at the weekend, and all of a sudden it's burnout stage.
But they're the situations
And
we
that's-
thrive on,
that's-
you know. I
that's-
mean,
that's
for
the
years,
difference.
yeah, like they're the situations we thrive on now, because years ago we would have been calling
Yeah.
out for games like this. Now that we are, people are writing
no,
us
no.
off. I know the pundits have.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing between the Newcastle and Villa kind of Champions League push, if you want to call it, is going to be injuries, you know. And Newcastle has one game a week, and Villa doesn't. And I think we experience this too with Europa League versus Champions League, right? They're different competitions, and you might be able to rotate a player on the Premier League game the weekend before or after, but you're not rocking up to any of those Champions League game without your full squad. And no disrespect, it's just a different competition, and time will tell in terms of what ends up happening with that. And I think you guys can totally do it. The biggest thing is going to be injuries. Emery's got the ability to manage these types of competitions and make it through. But again, it's going to be a different competition for everybody, right? Because it's a new format with the league format. So we'll see. It's going to be 8 games against 8 different opponents, which we've never experienced before. But I think that wraps up game week 1 for now. Let's pop into game week 2. I wanted to touch on the pop into the Discord if you're not there already. If you're joining us from because you follow Lewis or because you follow Martin, join our Discord. The link will be in the description. We have rooms for every Premier League team, so you can hop in and you can talk with like-minded fans. We also have fantasy Premier League. We're going to have a fantasy Premier League podcast that's going to be starting on this coming week. So that'll be reviewing the game weeks and giving you tips and hints for the games upcoming. So that's going to be starting as well. You have access to our contributors. So if you have questions or you want to chat, we have that all in one place. So come on over and let's hop into game week 2. Let's do the first match, which will be Brighton Man U. Sean, you want to take us away on that?
Yeah, first, I just want to say that, for the fans that are traveling down from Manchester, you can't get any further away than Brighton. The bus has got to leave around 5:45 in the morning for a 12:30, half 12 kickoff, as it said. So, I think, obviously the Premier League hasn't, thought about its fans for a while. I think, the TV obviously is bigger, but, that's the first thing. The second thing is I think, it's a good time to play Brighton. Obviously, they got signings coming in left and right. And they're not going to be probably in the squad at this point. So I think that's big. I think for Manchester United, I think it's just important. Look, just win the game last week. Just get to the international break. You got a tough game at Brighton. You got Liverpool. And then, some of these signings are going to be integrated into the squad. I think you're going to start seeing, Luke Shaw will be back. You've got to get to this break. And if you can go down to Brighton and get a result, obviously 3 points would be great, but, it's not going to be easy. I actually think, after seeing some of these signings that Brighton has made and, even more coming in today, by the end of the season, they're going to be probably flying. Probably the middle of the season. So to get them early in the season before some of these signings can bid in, I think is big. For United, I don't know who's going to play. Ahmad I thought, was been pretty good, but he announced his mother passed away today, so I can't imagine he's probably going to play. He's probably going to have to take care of all that stuff. I mean, obviously, much more important than football. There's going to be a restructure of the lineup, and it's we'll see. Maybe Rashford has to do something. You watch Rashford and you just don't know what you're going to get from match to match. He desperately needs a goal. I thought it was big Xerxes scoring last week, coming in and scoring. I think that was big to kind of hit the ground running. He should start this game. I would think De Ligt starts. I said before the season when we were doing the predictions that the defense for Manchester United has to be better. It's not gonna, they're not gonna win games 4-3. Well, if the defense can be solid and they can keep clean sheets, kind of like Arsenal did, and Arsenal kind of built that their strength on the defense, and then they kind of started getting better. If they can keep clean sheets first, I think they'll be in decent shape. It's going to be tough against Brighton. I think they're a very good squad, so I think this is a real tough match for them. Good
question for you, Sean.
Yeah.
Do you think that Man U this week could go with that 4-2-2-2, what we set up with against Fulham, where they kind of played a deep two, which was Mino and Casemiro, and then two in front, which was Fernandes and Mount, and then two more attacking wide players? Because I'm not sure that trying to play that system. You see, Ten Hag for me fell upon a style of play what beat Man City twice, or beat them once and then got a draw against them. It was kind of a bit of a copy of Arsenal at City, where we knew that City couldn't break us down if we sat well, and we knew that we could beat them on the break. I mean, we actually had more shots on target in that game, what everyone pans us for drawing 0-0. We had more shots on target than them. They had one shot on target. Yeah. So I think Ten Hag fell on that. I'm not sure if that sitting deep. I think Brighton are actually better between the lines than Man City sometimes with the way that they progress the ball. So I don't know if that'll work or not. What do you think?
When I thought, you watched the City match, and City didn't do much in that game. I mean, I think they scored on the first shot they had on target. And I thought even last week against Fulham, if they had anybody that could finish, I mean, you're just watching this match and you're like, how do you not finish? How do you not finish? How do you not finish? They could score. But, I agree. I think Brighton is going to play a little differently. So I think maybe 4-2-3-1, something like this, which is, he uses a lot. He used a lot last year. I think it's going to be down to some of the people that he's going to have available. Obviously, Shaw's probably out till the international break. I don't know. He was out for 6 months and then played in the final, and then he said, "Oh, I'm not healthy enough to play," which boggles my mind again. But Mizraoui will probably play there. I thought he was pretty good, but I think you're right about that. I think Brighton's going to try to play a little bit different style that might not work with that lineup. So I think he's going to have to. I'm not sure he's great tactically in games. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, when something's not really working for them,
adjusting,
he doesn't adjust. Like, it's just weird. You watch the games and you're yelling at the TV and you're like, look, you got to adjust. Like, I can see it. Like, I coached. I'm not like obviously a coach at that level, but you're sitting there and you're like, I can see it. Everybody can see it. Like, you got to change something up. And, I think they got blitzed by Brighton last year in the game. And it just like you're sitting there and you want to make sure he kind of does something like that. But he's not great at making those changes. So I think he does have to do something and kind of do a little bit of stylistic change for this match. I don't know who they're going to have available. I just their bench isn't like they got some guys injured. I just don't know. Like if Ahmad is obviously not playing, attacking. You got Anthony, but I no confidence in that. But I just don't know what he's got available for this match to kind of up front. Obviously, I think Xerxes, once again, after the international break, I think they're going to be better off because they're going to have some players back that they just have to get through this Brighton and Liverpool match.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the way that your brain was trying to compute who was on the bench is exactly exemplifies the problem that you guys have going on over there.
That's right.
Lewis, let's bring you in. What do you think is what are you looking forward to? What do you think is gonna be the outcome? What are you seeing for that match this weekend?
I think there's not really much pressure on us at the moment with Hurstler, obviously youngest manager ever in the Premier League. You sort of just go for it. If we lose to Man United, we lose to Man United. It's not really a big deal with him this season. It's no pressure, as I said. I think we're going to play a really high intensity because that's what Hurstler likes. He'll push really high and he'll leave a lot of space at the back, but which could be a problem with Martinez if he plays with a long ball in behind. If Rashford plays, Diallo with the pace against Dunk could be a bit of a problem. But if we play like we did at Everton, if we press like we did at Everton, forcing the mistakes with Weaver in the midfield, picking it up in there, I don't see why we couldn't go and win 2-3-4-0 again.
I mean, I think that the reality is whenever you play Man U, if you are attacking minded, you're going to get a lot of shots, right? Like that's kind of the blueprint against Man U, right?
Yeah, we also have quite a lot of ways to score. We can, as completely opposite to Ten Hag, Hurstler's quite adaptable in the game. If something's not working, we start playing wide, we can bring it in the middle, and we'll create a lot of chances. And obviously, Minter being available is massive because he's been probably our best player in pre-season. He adds that something on the right that we didn't really have. We had it on the left with Matoma, but when we had Solly March, unbelievable player Solly March, but he wasn't that direct like Minter, attacking, drive with the ball, dribble, cut inside, win a penalty, get a shot away, and just, and obviously United at the back at the moment isn't what past Uniteds were like. So, and we're the same sort of but we got a clean sheet against Everton, and it took us 25 games last season to get our first clean sheet. So a big clean sheet at Everton was nice to see. But I think there's no pressure. We've got a new signings coming in. Ruter on a bench, hopefully get some minutes. Obviously quite a lot of pressure on him, costing £40 million. Hopefully he gets a few minutes, trying to replace Pascal Gross. Big loss in the midfield. Gruder maybe playing. Apparently he's got a slight knock, so we'll see there. Welbeck always does well against United. Scored in the last game against United. And we've got a good squad that can beat United, in my opinion.
Ben, let's hop over to you real quick because there's a lot of incomings into Brighton, and there's players that they're very robust, right? They've played a lot of games, so potentially incoming you have Matt O'Reilly, who played 3,200 minutes last year, scored 18 goals with 13 assists. You have Ruder, who's come in. He had a big year last year. He played 3,700 minutes in the championship. Obviously, there's more teams over there, but he had 6 goals and 16 assists. And you have Kadioglu, who just really impressed at the Euros this year. Also had 3,300 minutes in the Turkish league with 1 goal and 4 assists. So you have these players coming in. How do you think that they're going to impact? What role do you see them playing? And what attributes do you see them bringing to the Brighton squad?
Yeah, I mean, first, when you're reeling off these names, I'm like, this really is the Super League. Like, come on, that Brighton been able to get these guys in. They
spent 170 million net spend this year, more than Arsenal.
The thing is, as well, people are arguing that they've got too many wingers and stuff. I think what it looks like, they're going to send quite a few people out on loan, and then once they've sorted those, that I personally feel like there might be a sale. That's probably an unpopular opinion. I think there might be one that goes, because when you look, there's too many, and there's some that they're not going to be loaned out, like they're Premier League ready players. So but generally, like the level of quality they've got there is ridiculous. But so in terms of the signings, I think, I think O'Reilly, I literally about 5 minutes ago, I saw that Fabrizio Romano said, "Here we go." So I'm guessing that one's done. And I think that is a massive signing. Him next to Viper in midfield, that's a midfield that gets into Europe, you know. We've got a really good balance there of two athletic players that can cover a lot of ground. I almost like you wish that got done a bit earlier so we could play against Man United, because their midfield doesn't really have legs. So that would have been quite interesting to watch. But the thing I've noticed the most about a lot of these players, and I don't know a lot about their new manager, but when I looked, saw one or two games and some pieces that people have done on him, and it looks like there's a lot of people with carrying the ball, great engines. The fullbacks have a really important role. So now bringing in someone like Kadioglu, who can play either side, and is like he's good enough to play as a winger. Like he plays as a winger sometimes for Turkey, and his education in Holland was as a attacking midfielder. You've got a guy like that who can defend at fullback. And then the guys that they brought in on the wings have added so much pace and ball carrying. When I look at Ruter, people, I love that guy so much. Like, he's so good, he's so entertaining, and people don't realise how good of a signing this is. You've got to look at it this way: Brighton don't spend a lot of money normally on one player. So if they spent 40 million on him, it shows how highly they rate him. Leeds spent about that to get him in the first place. At the time, everyone was like, it's too much money. And then they looked at it like, you know what, fair enough. He's about that at that time. So I think when you've got
Ben,
him,
Matt O'Reilly just got the "here we go" from Fabrizio to Brighton now.
Yeah, crazy. So I mean, this window could be top. Like, we'll see. You can't say too much too soon, but Kadioglu, O'Reilly, there's sorting every problem. If you look throughout the team, maybe I feel like they could do with another centre back. They haven't got one of them. I'm trying to think. They didn't.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
We've been linked with a couple. Hummel's obviously the big one we've been linked with. If we can do that, it would be unreal. And one from PSV apparently really wants to move.
Oh, I think I saw that. Was it Boscogli?
Yeah.
He's not the best physically, but he's very good on the ball. PSV are like like a Brighton or Arsenal, City. They play with the ball a lot, and he's a really important part of it. So it'd be interesting. But just lastly on the wingers, like Minte, Gruder, Ruter, João Pedro, these are all players that can win you a game single-handedly. They've got that moment where they could just skip past 2-3 players and then just hit it top bins on either foot. So I think Brighton on the counter-attack, the interesting thing against Man United is if Man United try to play transitional, I think they'll get battered. I think Brighton have got too much quality. And they've got a proper workhorse number 9 with Welbeck as well.
Yeah.
I was just going to say before. Yeah. Martin just said Milner run the show, and he's right. I was just going to say to Sean before he dropped off, I would have said, even in that game against Fulham, with Man United's supposed better, more compact setup, I still saw at least five or six times where they were 5-0-5 or 4-0-6, where they've got 6 players ahead of the ball and no one in midfield. And Fulham could have had 2 or 3 goals off them off that, where they didn't get back enough, and they were all ahead of the ball. And that's the problem with this 4-2-2-2, what he's doing. Because if Mainu and Casemiro get too far forward and everyone's pressed the ball, and then there's a ball into the middle, they're caught again. And that's what happened to them time and time again last year. I think Brighton will do them. I think Brighton are going to win like 3-1. My only problem for Brighton for the season.
Can play that 4-2-2 except for Villa, lads. Just putting that out there.
No. My worry for Brighton this year, and I think it might play out in next week's game, which is against Arsenal at the Emirates, another 12:30 kickoff, is the fact that I think they're very immobile at centre-back. I think Duncan Van Hecker are just too immobile, and I think that what we will do, like we did last year in both games, home and away, we made them two centre-backs work, and they couldn't keep up with us. And Saka and Ødegaard really started moving them around and pulling them apart, and that gave loads of room for Havertz, Trossard from the left, got Martinelli now, and we just crashed the box where we pulled them apart and they couldn't move. And I think that immobility at the back, especially centre-back, will be Brighton's Achilles heel this year in the big games, because when Haaland can pull you apart, Villa, same, Watkins pulled them all over the place. We did it quite well with our front three or front four to an extent in pulling them apart. And I think the better teams will do that to Brighton still, and unless they get a bit of pace in at centre-back. I think Newcastle improved when they got Botman. Botman's a little bit quicker than what people give him credit for. And so he managed to plug a few gaps for Newcastle. I think it's all right saying we might go and get Hummels. I don't think Hummels is quick enough for Brighton. I think Brighton need to get someone like a Hanko or a Gertruda, someone with a bit more pace who can play at the back.
Yeah, it's a shame we couldn't get Colwill a couple of seasons ago on a permanent. I think that would have been he would have been massive for us to have next to Dunk in there. And then when Dunk calls it a day next to Van Hecker in there, would have added a lot of stability. Because it's happened a few times with Donkey recently. Balls over the top. He's had to take one for the team and take the red card because he's no chance he's catching the Saka, Haaland. But then if you get a different centre-back, does he have the passion, the defensive side that Dunk has, winning the headers, the leadership at the back is something that you also got to consider with Dunk.
Yeah, I think it depends on what kind of game state and game style it is, right? Like that plays a lot into whether you have those big kind of more immobile players, almost like a Mertesacker that we used to have at Arsenal a few years back. But with a manager who wants to play on a more transition-based system, then those types of players become, instead of possession-oriented, right? Those types of players become liabilities at some point and get phased out eventually. Let's shift over to the Villa Arsenal game. Nigel, do you want to take the stage?
I can do, yeah. I want to know if Martin's got a bar. You got a bar? Is that a bar behind? You got a bar behind you? You got some whiskies and wines behind you? Is that what it is on the side?
Yeah, it's a collection that my father has. So he's got stuff from like Japan, China. We've got the Dingle Distillery. We have what else is there? Oh, there's loads. There's too much. I can't even name them all.
That's awesome. Well, I was just segueing you into talk about the Villa game. Go ahead, Nigel.
I was just going to say I'm hoping that after Saturday that Martin and his dad feel that we need to crack a few of them open, because their defence has just been opened. I actually think that this is going to be a good game. I do actually think Arsenal will win, not because I'm an Arsenal fan, but if you look at the two games last season, the XG for two games combined is 3.7 Arsenal to 1.6 Villa. We didn't score any goals out of 3.7 XG. Villa scored 3 out of 1.6. That game at Villa Park was an absolute one team attack versus defence. Villa got an early goal, and then it was all hands to the pump in defence. We should have had 2 clear penalties. We missed 2 clear chances. I mean, the penalties were just ridiculous. That Jesus one. The fact that Jesus got kicked by David Luiz in the leg, don't get a penalty. And then literally, I think it was the next day on the Sunday, Liverpool got a penalty for exactly the same thing at Palace. And I'm like, how can that happen? How can that happen?
I do agree with you.
Yeah, and the perfectly good goal at the end when Nketiah scores. I mean, I just didn't. I still can't, for the life of me, understand how. You see, and this is what it brings me back to the referee was a joke. Jared Gillett is an absolute joke, but it brings me back to this. Jared Gillett's a Liverpool fan, a self-confessed Liverpool fan. He can't have anything to do with Liverpool games. At this point, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Man City in title race. He knows the rules where if he disallows the goal, there's got to be enough evidence to overturn him disallowing it. Whereas he knows that if he gave the goal, there's got to be enough evidence to overturn it and disallow it. Now, there's no way on earth that he could see anyone handball it, and the linesman didn't see it either because the linesman gave a goal. So Jared Gillett there made a business decision that he would disallow that goal without actually seeing the handball, knowing that the rules protected him. Allegedly, knowing that the rules protected him. And that was my thing. But onto this, that's last year. Onto this game, I actually think it'll be very much the same story. I think Villa will come to play. I think Villa want to play. I think it'll be the game what we all expect, which will be very, very tough in midfield. I just think that Bukayo Saka against Luca Digne will be a battle what decides the match, and Saka is going to cook Digne up, and that'll be it. I think Arsenal will do Jurian Timber at left back. I think
the last year's games,
Arsenal will go with Jurian Timber at left back instead of Zinchenko. Yeah. But I think they'll do that to nullify Bailey. I'm expecting Ben White knows that it's going to be up again in a game with Morgan Rogers, and I've got no worries about Ollie Watkins against Saliba or Gabriel. They're the best two centre backs in the league. I said to you, the game will be won in Villa's left back. Saka will cook Digne, and that'll be the game. That's the game. The game is right there. It's going to take place in a 30-yard square. That's the entire game. That's me.
That's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there.
I actually think Villa. I think Villa, like I said, I got them as 6. I kind of understand Martin's argument. They might finish 3rd. I think they'll be up there, and I think Villa are doing it the right way. My best mate's a Villa fan. He's the head professional at Walsall Golf Club. I'm just giving him a little punt there. And I always said to him, since they got Unai Emery, the worst thing what could happen is that he goes full Unai. If he goes full Unai, you're in trouble. And it's always there because he's gone full Unai at Sevilla, he went full Unai at Zenit, he went full Unai at PSG, he went full Unai with us. You're just waiting for him to go full Unai at Villa, where just everything just goes and it explodes. And I just don't want it to be this year because I still want to see Man United and Tottenham kicked out of that top 4. So I think Villa's got a chance. I think Villa will do well this season. I think it's come at a good time for us to play Villa. We're not 100% up to speed. I don't think they are either. And I just think the quality of players between the two teams will be the difference when we're not up to speed. That's it. Although I do think that Villa will do very well throughout the season.
Before I let you jump in, Martin, I did want to note that in the Villa Arsenal game last year at Villa, Mikel Arteta was not on the touchline. But alternatively for this year, I think the battle is going to be really tough for Arsenal in midfield. You have a super like Onana. I'm gonna do Onana. My name's not Andre, mate. Doesn't show up for any games as much as he does against Arsenal. I don't know whether he grew up being an Arsenal fan or he grew up being a Spurs fan and hates us, but there's nothing that lights a fire under that man's ass than playing Arsenal. He goes supernova whenever he plays against us. So my concern is the physicality of the midfield battle. What do you think, Martin, from your perspective?
I think from a midfield battle, are not going to compete. Right? Reason being, you've got John McGinn, who is a workhorse. He will not stop running. The world is covered by 70% of water. The rest is covered by John McGinn. Right? That's simple. Okay? You've got now Onana, 6'5" monster, physical presence in for corner, for defending set pieces, attacking set pieces. No one's going to know how to deal with him. You're just going to look up and go, here, good luck, right? Then you've got Tielemans, who gets the ball and moves it so quick. It's just one touch bump through the line, and we're splitting teams open. And as for Ollie Watkins against the two centre halves, do you know that Ollie Watkins is our top goal scorer against Arsenal with 5 goals? And funny enough, he scored for them against them two centre backs. So you should be very worried about Ollie Watkins, and you should definitely be worried about Luca Digne against Saka, because anytime Luca Digne come up against Saka, Saka's been quiet. Saka was quiet in the away game. He was definitely quiet in the home game for use at home. And I know the fact that you may have brought up Arteta wasn't on the line for the away game, and that's fine. That happens. He was suspended, and that may have played a part. But what happened when he was there in the home end? You lost by more. So it goes to show you were better without Arteta against us for some reason. But I just think physically we are probably one of the best equipped teams in the league. One of them. Obviously you look at Man City's midfield, that they're just ridiculous. So they're just levels above. I do like Arsenal's midfield, don't get me wrong. They have a very good midfield. But in terms of physicality, I don't think they have as much physicality as compared to Villa's. Yes, Declan Rice can be a physical player, but Odegaard really isn't. He likes to be on the ball defensively. He's not shaky by any means. He does get into position, and that's all well and good, but he's not the most physical player, and I don't think he's going to be able to cope with Onana, in my opinion. And I know everyone has their opinions, because in my opinion, opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one. So I don't really think that we're going to be troubled too much by the midfield. Now, however, your attacking three, yes, I am very concerned about Kai Havertz. I am concerned about Saka, of course, because on his day, he is an absolutely brilliant winger, and I'm not taking that away from him. Left-sided player, Trossard, Martinelli. There's not really a set player out on that left side. I don't know if you agree with me on that one or not. So I'm not too concerned out there. Yes, your centre-backs, very good, very physical, but Watkins can put up with that. I just think at any weak point in that Arsenal team, it's probably left-back. I know what you say with Timber and everything else, but Timber's still not back from an ACL injury.
Yeah.
You see Zinchenko. And if he's coming up against Bailey or Rodgers, good luck, because he likes to shift inside, and I know he does, because that's obviously the way Arteta likes to play. He likes to have his left backs kind of shifting inside, but Zinchenko doesn't come back into left back that quick, which is why I think you've all been so annoyed by him, and I would be too if that was the case.
I think we'll go Timber at left back. I think it'll be Timber at left back, and the midfield really don't worry me, because Partey and Rice are more than physical enough. You say that you like battles in the midfield. We are the proper Brexit ball, harem ball team now. Us. I mean, if you look at our height, we are proper Brexit ball, mate. And the funny thing is, I was doing a Discord live Q&A before I came on here. And someone mentioned about physicality, and I said, look, you only need to look at Mikel Arteta and listen to the interviews, what he's done, where he talks about people who have influenced him in terms of his management style. He hands down says every time, David Moyes. David Moyes is the biggest influence what he had as a manager. And you can tell, you know that it's true, in it, Ben. He said it loads of times.
I said before, Havertz is the Fellaini regen.
He is. It's Moyes and Wenger. Moyes and Wenger are his in that order are his influencers. Pep's down here. Pep helped him with Juego de Position mostly, but his philosophy of football and how he wants it to play. You only need to look at the side now. If Timber plays left back, Timber's 5'11", Raya's 6'1" in goal, Gabriel's 6'3", Saliba's 6'4", Ben White's 6'1". Midfield, Partey's 6'1", Rice is 6'2", yeah. Kai Havertz is 6'4". When Marino comes in, Marino's 6'2". He'd be left centre mid. Odegaard's 5'10", Saka's 5'10", Martinelli's 5'11". So at that point, you start thinking, and we could bring Calafiori at left back, who's 6'2". Yeah, minimum height requirement. You could bring Calafiori at 6'2" at left back. You got Kivior, who's 6'3". So all of a sudden, you've got just a team of giants. And when Arsenal were at their best, in their Invincibles year. Lehman 6-3, Campbell 6-3, Torre 6-1, Vieira 6-5, Gilberto 6-4, Perez 6-1, Bergkamp 6-1, Henry 6-2. They weren't small. Lawrence 6'4", Edu 6'2", Parler 6'1". They weren't small. They were all big. I love what Villa are doing, trying to get a bit more height because they are a small team. Outside of Onana, Torres, and Mings, Konza, there isn't much height there, is there? They need a bit more height, I think. If you're going to compete at the top table, like I said, get third and really go into it, I just think they need a bit more height, a bit more physical. I know Onana's a big lad. I'm not worried about it. We've got Saliba, Gabriel's probably the best in the area in the league, isn't it? Probably. I'm spitballing. I don't think there's much argument of Gabriel not being the best aerially in the league. He scores the most goals, doesn't he?
I think the thing about Saliba that
the best in the league. I do agree with you. He is arguably the best in the league, and he's proven it with his goals. He's proven it defensively, like winning. I think he won 94% of his aerial duels last season, and that's a ridiculous amount to be winning for any centre half.
Yeah,
I think the thing about if Villa are gonna win, to me, it's gonna be with transitions from Onana. Like, people think that because he's played Brexit ball with Deitch for a couple years that he's incapable of passing, and it couldn't be further from the truth. That's one of the reasons why I wanted him for Arsenal, because if you look back at his time in Lille in France, this guy is passing through balls on a dime with guys running full sprint down the pitch. So that's what's gonna haunt my dreams in the lead up to this game is gonna be Tielemans and Onana with through balls to Bailey and Watkins through the lines. Right on the opposite side, I think you're gonna need Villa plays that high line, right? And sometimes you can say it's a little reckless. In my opinion, because they don't quite have the top end speed going backwards to kind of match that line, right? So you're gonna have Martinelli on the wing and Saka and Havertz as well. I think it's gonna be, can Arsenal have their front three breaking through those lines? Like Kai Havertz got in several times last year, right? Specifically in the away game, right? But they couldn't get the final ball. Martinez, again, he's the Onana type. Whenever he plays Arsenal, he's like grows two more hands and two more legs and starts stopping everything. So it's going to be interesting. Lewis, what did you think about the Villa Arsenal game from an outsider's perspective?
I don't think it's been touched on yet, but I think the game will be won on set pieces. If Villa can stop Arsenal set pieces, then I can see Villa doing Arsenal, but Arsenal unbelievable at set pieces last season, and they'll probably continue to be it this season, as you said, with the height. So that's why I think the game's going to be won or lost there.
Actually, very interesting debate you put there, Lewis. I mean, we've Austin McPhee, who loves set pieces, and now that he's signed Onana, I know I'm probably bringing it back to Onana, but with his height and presence in the box, and yes, he's probably going to go against Saliba, of course, and Gabriel, which I think might not be a problem on the day. I'm not taking away their ability to win in the air, but on the day, they are very good in the air. And now the fact that they mentioned the high line, against West Ham, we didn't play a high line. We were actually a bit more conservative this time, which is why we were so dominant against West Ham. And we probably should have been out of sight in that game in 30 minutes, in my opinion, with the amount of chances that we had. We cut through them, we played in between the lines. And that's the way I like Villa playing, personally, myself. High line just gives me a heart attack. Yes, it worked last season at times, and it did. But there were certain games where I felt it shouldn't have happened in the games that we lost against Liverpool, Arsenal's, your Man City's. Well, for some reason, it worked against Man City at home, but it didn't work away from home. But when Villa play more conservative and not as high, they do a little bit high, but not as high, we are actually a much better team because we draw players in and then we're taking them out of position. And then we're initially leaving 6-7 players behind us. And it's literally 4 against 3 in that transition. And that's the way I love Villa playing, is exposing teams in the midfield, exposing them in between the lines. We've done it against Arsenal. We've done it against Man City. And that was probably the best performance ever that I've ever seen from Villa in that performance. At home, at Villa Park.
Did we do it against Arsenal?
Yeah. Did you not see the goal?
I mean, there was a couple of...
Did we do it against Arsenal?
I'm
Yeah,
talking
we did
about
do it against
not the
Arsenal.
goal, but
Not the goal.
wasn't there a
Not
few
the
really
goal.
bad missed chances that I thought who got injured in that game? Wasn't it Bailey that got injured in
No,
the
it wasn't
game
Bailey.
at
It was.
Which game?
it was
The-
Bailey.
I think no, I
Bailey
think it was
came
Matty
off
Cash. Matty Cash got injured last game, no? Wasn't it?
at 40. No, or it was Diaby who got injured. No,
Oh,
it was
sorry,
Bailey who got injured. Bailey got
he
injured,
last season.
and Diaby came on last season at Villa.
Oh yes, you're right. Sorry, last season.
I'll say though, there's one
He-
thing that everyone has overlooked. Last season when we played Villa, we didn't have Party in midfield, and that our strongest team is when both games we didn't have Party. I think the second one he came back, and then he got another knock, and then he didn't play that game, and then he came back again, and we went on a long streak towards the end of the last season of just winning game after game, and he's a massive reason because it's not just him, but it's how him being in the team moves everyone else around. So we
It's
had
an
Havertz in
influence.
midfield. So we had Havertz in midfield, which then means you don't have him up top. And for me, Havertz versus Jesus, I think he offers a lot more in a lot of games. And I think Villa is one where if you have Havertz up top and you've got Partey and Rice in midfield, and then maybe me personally, I'd go Jesus on the left because the first thing in the first half, don't lose one duel, win everything, don't be dominated in any way. And then you've got guys like Martinelli who can come on, run in behind, and Trossard who can, make quicker, smarter passes as well. And the other side to it is the biggest thing is how do we defend transitions? Because like what you were saying, I think Villa are dangerous on transition. And if we allow them to have space in behind, that's where Watkins will thrive. And obviously, we're very good at defending transitions, but at the same time, the left back situation is a key thing here. Because if you've got Zinchenko there against Bailey, that's a clear weakness they're going to target. Zinchenko isn't as bad defensively as everyone makes out. However, he is a weakness, so people target it more, so it gets exposed more. It's one of those situations. But the last game, Timber played a little bit towards the end. I have a feeling that maybe he'll start and then he'll be subbed for Calafiori. And now it might be slightly risky because Calafiori hasn't played much. But I think in this game, you can't afford to start Zinchenko. Maybe he comes on late, but I would rather just bring on Calafiori because the physical side to it and the winning those 1v1s in those wide areas, that's how we're going to win a game. Obviously, winning is the attacking side, but to stop you guys from getting in behind, I think with a back four of Timber, Gabriel, Saliba, Ben White, that can deal with any attack in this league on its best day. So that's the important part there. And then in the midfield, having Partey and Rice. I get what you're saying about Onana, and I completely agree. I think the height thing isn't as much of an issue in the game. It's more set pieces. And I think Onana, McGinn, there's a lot of physicality there. So physically, I think it'll be quite even in midfield. But to me, it's more about the front three, Arsenal's front three, and Villa's wingers running in behind. If those two, whoever gets it right there, wins the game for me.
And that's where I think you're right, Ben, about Partey being in there because Partey is the guy who's going to ping those balls through. Like just on the opposite side with Onana and Tielemans, like you're going to look for those players to break the high line of Arsenal and get those through balls and chances. I think on the Arsenal side, when you're missing Partey, he's the one who's going to be playing those risky balls. And I ultimately, I think it's going to be who can be more clinical, right? Who can take their chances at the end of the day. I think it'll be a 2-1, a tight game, probably with like a goal after this. The last goal will be after the 70th minute. One thing I do want to note was from last week. One thing that I've noticed with Saliba is that whenever he comes back from holiday or international breaks, he comes back rusty. He's the type of player that needs to play every week and even twice a week to keep his rhythm going. And last week
So do
he
you
like
think then
misplaced some silly passes.
do you think we have Saliba at a good time because he's rusty?
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry,
from your
yeah,
perspective, I think it's the best time to be facing him.
I think
He
everyone
plays
in
it.
defence was rusty. I'll say that. I think there was a
Yeah.
couple of Raya was for me was probably man of the match, but there was a couple of moments where his passing and Saliba as well. Just it's not necessarily it's the decision to make that pass in that moment that just put them under more pressure. And like you said, that Saliba being rusty is something that they might target. You know.
And I don't think it's like he's obviously not. He doesn't become a bum, right? But like Saliba at like 99 FIFA rating versus Saliba at 95 FIFA rating is going to be a big difference and something that can be potentially taken advantage of. Again, he plays his way into form, right? So like this could be the game where he clicks in and he's totally fine, or he could stumble a little bit around in potentially make an uncharacteristic of his extraordinarily high level mistake that if you have a team who's got somebody like Ollie Watkins running in behind, that it can be taken advantage of, you know? Nigel, you sound like you got something to say.
I was just going to say, just to finish up on Arsenal Villa, there was a poll on earlier about what's the best away goal that's been scored, Arsenal versus Villa. I voted for Emi Martinez's diving header in the 90th minute.
That was my favorite one.
Oh, you are petty. You are petty. Oh, you
and then straight after the Martinelli goal as well.
Oh, red free.
Believe it or not, Martin, there was only five options, and that was one of the options. I was like, yeah, it's got about 70% of a vote.
Oh, you are petty. Oh my God.
I'll be honest.
I would have done the same, but Jesus Christ.
I'll be honest, Martin.
He went up to the corner, and then he was like, "You know what? I'm going to redeem myself. I'm going to go get the goal myself." And then straight away down the other end, Martinelli celebrates before the goal's gone in. He's like, "Oh wait, now let me score first."
I remember that game because it was a 2:30 a.m. wake up for me here in the States, and I'm watching the game, and I'm like, "You've got to be kidding me! This is like peak away, the whole situation." And I think I might have woken up my family at like 4:00 in the morning, off of the back of that one. But yeah, so like you were saying, Nigel, chat transfers.
Chat transfers, or if you've got the other fixtures, just give you a brief score prediction. Don't need to get into detail, just a brief score prediction. Do you want to do that or not?
Yeah, we can do that. I will pull them up. Give me one sec. If why don't we start with the Brighton game?
Arsenal versus Villa. I've got 2-0. I've got 2-0 Arsenal. All right.
2-0 Arsenal.
I've got 2-1 Villa.
I mean, Martin, just so you know, my wild prediction for the season is that Arsenal will not concede more than 15 goals. Will beat Chelsea's goals against God this season.
Nigel, did you ever have like a wet dream? Because that's one of them.
It's a fanciful. I mean, at this rate, Nigel you said 2-1, right, Nigel? So Aston Villa will score one of 14.
2-0 Arsenal.
Oh, 2-0. Okay, I have a 2-1. So if Nigel's pace is gonna take hold, then Villa we'll concede to Villa, and then we won't concede for another few games.
Yeah, we've got Brighton at home. I don't see Brighton. Sorry, Lewis. I don't see Brighton scoring against us at home. I don't see Tottenham scoring against us away. We'll park the bus against City, so that's another clean sheet. Right, let's do the games. Tottenham are losing to Everton.
If we get through those five with clean sheets, I'll fully be like, you know what, it's coming home, lads. But let's see, because the thing with some of those teams is like what we're saying with Brighton and Villa, the counter attacking. If we don't it's more about, for me, the left back thing. If we can get Timber and Calafiori like match ready, I'm so confident with all of those games, you know. But and then Marino coming in as well. And we don't know. I feel like there's going to be something.
I think
else
he's going to be. I think he's going to be a big miss for this Aston Villa game. Actually, from an Arsenal perspective,
Marino.
I think. Yeah, I think if we had
Yeah,
Marino, I would feel a lot more confident
Look,
going into the game.
I have to go now. I'm going on a trip away with friends. So look, thanks for having
Come
me
on,
on.
Martin.
I really enjoyed it.
Cheers, mate. We really appreciate you jumping on.
It
was
was
really
great.
good
It was
chat.
great crack, great banter. And Nigel, stop having wet dreams, please, about clean sheets, okay? Because clearly yours is not clean by the sound of it. All right.
Hey.
So, thank you very much, lads, and best of luck. Okay.
Wait.
Hey,
can we get your
good
prediction
luck.
before you jump
Have a
off?
good time, man. Have a good time.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 2-1 Villa.
All right,
Ollie
2-1
Watkins
Villa.
double.
Oh, Ollie Watkins brace. All right. I might have not so wet dreams about that if that ends up taking place.
I've got him in
thanks
my
for jumping
FPL
on.
just in case, you know.
Yeah. Look, lads. Thank you. Bye.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go through. I did mine. So 2-1 Arsenal. Who do you got for the Arsenal game, Ben? What's your score line?
2-0 Arsenal. I think same.
Lewis, who do you got?
I reckon 1-0 Villa.
1-0 Villa. All right. Let's go to the Man U game because that was the other game that we had on top. So Brighton, Man U. Who do we got in? That's why I had the wrong. What is this? The last year?
No. It's all right. It's all right. Reed. Man City is the Brighton. Yeah, it's the next page.
This is Brighton.
The first two games on Liverpool. Yeah, no. The first two. No.
Here we go. This is
round.
round 2.
There you
Sorry.
go. Yeah.
There we go. My brain is melting.
So yeah, I've got 3-1 Brighton.
Lewis, who do you got on that one?
I'll go bold. I'll go another 4-0.
Ooh.
Wow. All right.
I thought I was going to say I was going to say 4-2 Brighton.
I message Charlie Parker Turner and see if this guy's had a drugs test. 4-0.
We've done it before.
That's funny.
Yeah.
It could happen. I wouldn't be surprised.
What we got?
I think it'll be 3-1. I think Man U will get a goal somewhere because, like we talked about, the transition threat. But I think if Man U are going to win this game, they are getting in lucky before Brighton bring in their big signings. Because if those guys were showing up, they would be getting cooked, absolutely cooked. So Man U are going to get out of Dodge here. This is one of those matches where either Brighton's going to demolish them or it's going to be the dodgiest 1-1 draw ever, right? Because Man U play 11 guys behind the ball and then manage to go full Ten Hag, and that's they start collecting points in spite of their own best efforts. But then we have Crystal Palace, West Ham. What do you got there, Ben?
Ooh, this is hard. There's a couple of games here that I look at. I'm like, there's teams that need to get a result here. So Palace, West Ham, and then the Tottenham Everton one as well. I'm struggling to decide this one. I want to say Palace because it's at home. Palace at home are always good. So I'll go Palace 2-1.
Nigel, you're up on Palace, West Ham.
2-2.
Draw
Desmond
at home.
Gone for a full Desmond.
Lewis, who do you have on that one?
I was thinking the same as Nigel. I was going to go 2-2. I reckon West Ham nick a late equaliser.
I have West Ham winning 2-1 to support my West Ham into Europe plot that is terribly advised and rapidly failing.
It could be worse. I put West Ham 4th in my predictions.
Yeah, I put them 4th too. So we'll see. They gotta. The thing about them is they have. I think they have the players. It'll be if they can get the points. Like they could have gotten points last week, right? And so the way that these things shift so quickly is it's crazy. But Fulham, Leicester, can ESR put one in, Ben?
This could be another 1-1 for me. Both of them attack wise, they're not good enough. I don't think there's going to be a lot of goals in this. So I'll say 1-1. Yeah.
Nigel? Nigel is back. You back?
Yeah. Sorry. I agree with Ben. I think that the fake David Luiz will make an error, and I think that Jamie Vardy will get his second of the campaign. I think 1-1.
Vardy Nation will rise.
Vardy, who has slotted into my fantasy Premier League team.
Really?
I think he'll get another goal because that's just what he does. And I think it'll be 1-1. Lewis, who do you have in that one?
I need Muniz to do a bit in my fantasy Premier League, so I'm going to go with a 2-1 Fulham.
2-1 Fulham. Okay. Are we all unanimous that City will be beating Ipswich at home?
4-1, I think. I think like they'll probably beat them. I think Ipswich might get one goal late on, and then they'll go absolutely mental, their fans. But yeah, 4-1 or something.
Fair enough. And then we have another team that just came up, Southampton Forest. Lewis, who do you have in that one? Potentially with Eddie Nketiah making the move this week. We'll see.
Yeah. I think Southampton looked really good against Newcastle. I think we're really unlucky. So I reckon Southampton might do... We'll go 1-0 Southampton.
1-0 Southampton with the upset. Ben, how do you see this one?
Forest 2-0. Chris Wood double. Yeah, I think.
Scores against everyone but City. Nigel, who do you have in the Southampton Forest game? Southampton at home, which is of note.
I actually think that this will be a high-scoring contest, and I think it will be 3-2 to Nottingham Forest.
3-2 Forest. Okay.
Callum Hudson-Odoi and Morgan Gibbs-White causing havoc.
All right. I think that's going to be the first Premier League game in St. Mary's for quite a bit, right? Then we have what could be a pretty big match, actually, after Spurs going full Spurs last week against Leicester. They host Everton. Everton, again, like we mentioned, without the services of My Name Is Not Andre Onana. Ben, how do you see that one playing out?
Everton 2-0. I'm going
a
Jake O'Brien and Tarkowski header, both of them on corners. I think this game you've got a complete mismatch on set pieces. One who's really good and one who's terrible. So I think Everton, if they sit back and then just get a couple of corners, that could be it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it was Mikolenko, who's typically pretty good. He's had some good performances against good wide men. Got absolutely cooked last weekend. So I think that'll be interesting. Lewis, coming off of the last game, facing Everton, do you think that they can get a result at Spurs?
I think Everton looked quite good against us, and then they dropped off, and it sort of looked typical Everton. But I think they've been handed a big boost with Ashley Young being suspended for this game because he was pretty poor. But I agree with Ben. I think Everton are gonna do Spurs here. I reckon 3-1 Everton. Calvert-Lewin getting a brace.
DCL incoming. Nigel, who do you have in this one?
I've got 1-1 on my Super Six. I think Everton are boring. Tottenham are rubbish. 1-1.
I think it's going to be for full Spurs meltdown after whatever the result is this weekend. But I think it's going to be close. I think it'll be either be 1-1 or 2-1 Everton. I think the thing is Spurs can definitely make some things happen with the attacking players they have, but their
Solanke's injured, by the way. I saw that today. Solanke's out injured.
Interesting. Very interesting. So that means probably Richarlison will be starting at the 9, which typically hasn't fared that well for them. We did the Arsenal Aston Villa game. Bournemouth Newcastle. Who do you have on that one, Ben?
Oh, I'm struggling with this. High scoring one, definitely. Every time I'm definite about something, it's going to end up being 0-0 now. I think Newcastle will be like a 4-3 or something. Like a lot of goals. It could easily become that with these two teams.
Yeah, I think Bournemouth, as we discussed on the previews, like Bournemouth with Iraola is kind of being overlooked. You know what I mean? They're not your Bournemouth of the last couple of years, right? Nigel, who do you have in that one?
I think Newcastle.
Newcastle to win against Bournemouth. And you, Lewis?
I think this will be a Bournemouth, sort of similar to the Luton game last season. They'll go 3-0 down, look rubbish, and then suddenly something will happen, and then they'll score 3-3.
Sounds good. 3-3. I think Newcastle will take this one 2-1. I think there's going to be a lot of good ball movement in that game, as we mentioned previously. Then we have Chelsea traveling up to Wolves. Sterling, whose shirt has been taken out of his locker and banished to the second part of the training ground where he cannot be seen by Maresca. Do you think that I'll do mine first. I think that Wolves are going to be able to pass through their midfield. Enzo looked absolutely dreadful last weekend. And they're kind of a sieve through the center. So I see Wolves 2, Chelsea 1. Ben, how do you see that one playing out?
Yeah, similar to you, I think this is one where I think the result last week against Arsenal Wolves were better than the result we'll see. But I'm really unsure about Chelsea because the level of quality their players have got, they could just score out of nothing. So I'm going to go like a 2-2, but I think Wolves could win this.
Nigel?
You see, I actually think, following last week's game, I think that Wolves are a genuine top 10 contender, and I don't think Chelsea are. I think Chelsea, no matter how much you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. Unfortunately, Maresca's run out of glitter as well. You're not getting anything out of that Chelsea team. It's in disarray, no matter how much you dress it up. Gary O'Neill, on the other hand, for me, is one of the best young managers in the game. Every time I see him on TV, how he comes across, how he sets his team, all his teams have got a proper game plan. I think Wolves are going to beat him. I think it's going to be like 2 or 3-1. I think to Wolves. I just don't see Chelsea getting anything from him.
Maresca possibly on his way to an early holiday. Lewis, how do you see that one?
I think I've got to go with one boring prediction. I'm going to go with the 0-0. I think Chelsea, they have the quality, but I think their midweek Conference League game is going to sort of ruin them a little bit. Wolves do look good, but I think if they need to get a Neto replacement in this week, until they get one in, I'm going to just stick with a 0-0.
Yeah, I think after last week, obviously you miss Neto, but Cunha's come back. They have a bit. They just look tidy, right? They look like they're organized. That the manager has a clear style of play that they want to execute, and I think that it's going to be hard to execute against the best teams. But I think against other mid-table teams, of which Chelsea is one, they'll be able to really implement their style of play and do that. And Cole Palmer will probably be missing. Based on limping down the tunnel. We'll see. I don't know if there's been an update on that, but watch that space. And then finally we have Liverpool Brentford. Nigel, you were talking about how good Brentford looked last week. Do you think that they can get a result at Anfield?
No. No. Brentford might have been good against Palace, but no. Actually, no. I'm going to rescind that. they could get a draw. They could get a draw because Brentford have been there before and been to City and been defensively sound. And it's the same manager. They've got good defenders. I love talking about Ethan Pinnock and Ben Mee. I really rate them. I think both them two are really good. If they're on the game, I'm not buying this Collins stuff. I think Collins is a bit of a worry for me at Brentford. Ayer's injured. Is Christopher Ayer injured? I think he is, isn't he? So they might be a little bit light at the back. But if they're not, they could always get a draw because Liverpool don't look great up front. They didn't look great going forward against Ipswich. I know they're trying to build a little bit more slower rather than it being heavy metal transition football like under Klopp. They're trying to build a little bit slower, so they looked a little bit different. I don't know at Anfield if that would be the same. But if Brentford defend well, they could always get a draw. I still think Liverpool will win 2-1.
Yeah, I think that they kind of, you could see them moving through the gears and definitely in first gear for most of the beginning of that game and then kind of started shifting it up as it went. Ben, how do you see that one going?
Similar to Nigel, I think Brentford could get a draw here. And I think although Slot will want them to play with the ball, I think they'll struggle the first home game with the fans being behind them. It might end up becoming end-to-end, which might, personally, I think will suit Brentford more. I think they've got that threat in behind. But I still think Liverpool just, their attack, the firepower they've got, we talk about like individual ability. I'd say like a 2-1 or something. I think Liverpool win.
Lewis?
I think Brentford could get a draw, and I think they'll be holding a 1-1 for up until 75th minute. But Liverpool's quality was Salah and Trent, too much in the end. 3-1 Liverpool.
They have the Chaos Merchant.
Yeah, Nunes. And I hope the new lad from Liverpool, Vandenberg, is it? The centre-half?
Yeah.
I hope he gets some minutes, hopefully, because he looks like a good young centre-half that could be massive for Brentford this season.
I just realised they got Carvalho from Liverpool as well, didn't they? So they got two from there. I completely forgot. So maybe they'll have a point to prove.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting, as you discussed earlier, Nigel, to see if Ivan Toney comes back in to start or even off the bench. That front two of him and Bueno have really taken over. I mean, they've gotten some good results off the back of those two. Obviously, Mopé is gone off to greener pastures. Where did he go, Ben? Do you remember?
Still Everton, isn't he?
I don't think he's left yet. I saw something about Marseille were trying to get him, and people were like, these lot are just, I don't know what their recruitment team would do.
Mopé under De Zerbi would definitely be interesting to see.
Yeah.
That was the other thing that I wanted to talk about was how Brighton continue to go to the well on these signings. And like the last few, it's interesting to kind of to see them go through the gears, right? Because you've had them signing these players that we've never heard of that they all found on Ben's Twitter account. But now they're like, it's like the next level, right? And they're starting to put more money out, but it's like they don't miss, right? And it's like, at what point does Brighton miss on a transfer? This is ridiculous. They can't keep getting away with this.
I think it's more about the attention on the club. Like there's not as much media coverage, so that if there is a miss, you don't hear about it, and they don't spend a lot. So it's not like, you spend 80 mil on Mudryk, and then everyone's watching every week, over-analysing everything because he costs 80 mil. They might spend 8 mil on a winger. Then if he misplaces a pass, we're like, oh, he's only 8 mil. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it all comes down to the main man, Tony Bloom. The way he runs the club he loves his data with his Star Lizard company. He loves it. And I think it's the environment as well. Obviously Premier League is high pressure, but compared to other clubs, there's obviously pressure, but there's not that much pressure. If there's a mistake, it's a mistake. They get on with it. They're like, okay, And then they have the manager now, Hersler, De Zerbi, Potter, even Houghton. They can develop the players, and mistakes don't matter. And as you can see, Caicedo, and it's the loans as well, make a big difference. Caicedo looked good out on loan, wasn't the best, and then suddenly come back, and it's like, boom, 115 million. And now that's the reason we can spend all this money, because of Chelsea and Todd Bowley.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely see how they're reinvesting that money into the squad, and ultimately, like, having those types of sales allows you to miss on somebody, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that any of the players that they're bringing in, the big names that they're bringing in this summer, are going to be misses. I think that they're going to absolutely just kick on, and I think Brighton will be challenging for the back end of the European places again. What was your prediction for Brighton's finishing place this year, Lewis?
Oh, I think I put us 6th. Because I know a lot of people put us to above relegation, but obviously I'm going to be biased, but I don't see us being anywhere near relegation. Maybe
I'm
6
not
is
sure
a little
who made those predictions.
Obviously, 6 is probably a little bit generous, but from what I've seen against Everton in pre-season, I don't see why not.
Yeah, I think you're
Yeah,
definitely
I
in
mean-
the top half. Like, I can't see you being bottom half.
Yeah, no way.
But it's hard. I really struggle with the predictions this season. I think there's so many teams that it could go either way. Like Brighton, the quality you've signed, and if you get a centre back, a good centre back, and then obviously Kadioglu and O'Reilly, why not like top 6? Because you're not going to have the same Champions League and the Premier League thing, but at the same time, the what Villa have done. Tottenham, they've made some all right signings. I still don't think they've. I don't know. I'm not fully convinced after that first game, but the long haul of the season. I think what's going to happen with Brighton is they'll click second half of the season, and the same with Liverpool. I think Liverpool might struggle at the beginning, and then it's just going to all click, and they'll just score a whole lot of goals. They'll be too far behind to really challenge at the top. But yeah.
I think
Another big thing
Go
is
on.
injuries. Last season we had a lot of injuries to. Obviously, loads of teams had a lot of injuries, but we had injuries to key players. Like Matoma was out for pretty much the second half of the season. Pedro was out for a while, and we didn't really have any other wingers. Adingra had to play every game plus AFCON, and he was knackered by the end of the season. But if we can keep these players fit, then we've got a new doctor in from Frankfurt who had the least muscular injuries last season in the Bundesliga. If he can keep them fit and help with fatigue, then Matoma gets back to what he was before.
Yeah, I think they can make some moves. Ben, outside of our club allegiances, I don't think Ange is up for this league. I'm not sure if he has what it takes on the highest level. Like he can coach great attack. Like in American football, you have an offensive and defensive coordinator, right? And they're like two totally separate things. I think Ange would be an awesome offensive coordinator. I don't think that he has any knowledge of defense, and so he just like pretends that it doesn't exist, and like pretending that something doesn't exist at this level is not going to get the job done, right? So I think he, in a league where you have a different balance of strength and you have the best team by a mile, it's totally different thing than coming in here where you have teams of analysts who are literally watching every game you've ever coached to see what your tendencies are, that know that like they have 15 bends, right? So like you're not getting away with anything anymore. Nigel?
I was just going to say, yeah, Ange Postecoglou, he's definitely Bill O'Brien and not Matt Patricia. If you follow American football, you'd know what that means. So yeah, he's definitely in that category, and I agree. I mean, Lewis, you might want to know on the first podcast, we had to do who's going to be our biggest disappointment of the year, and I said Brighton. I said Brighton won't get top 10. I think that your new manager might find it a little tough. I know he started well. I just think that it could come at him very, very hard and very fast throughout that Christmas period. He ain't seen anything like that. He's in Germany where they're playing 34 games, and they have a nice little break at Christmas where we all go and sit at home and have some strudel and a few becks and sit down. He ain't doing 8 games in 20 days, and I think it could come really hard and really sharp at him. If he loses his toupee, in that time. He can't pull his hair out, can he? And he can't pull his hair out, can he?
You can pull it off. You can pull it off, but not out.
Pull it off. But I think Brighton's tapped into a great transfer strategy here, where what they've done is they had gone out and sold so many good assets at big money and not spent. They didn't really spend any of the money or what they'd got in. They didn't really spend the Caicedo money. They didn't really spend the Trossard money. They didn't really spend Ben White money. Really, if you think about it, if you look at the amount of money what we spent on transfers, and then all of a sudden they're just banking it all in. They obviously got quite a bit of money from playing in Europe last year, so they're using that the competition money, etc., and it's working. All fair play to them. I'm a bit worried about having 15 wingers and only 2 centre backs.
I'm not.
That
for me, after you look at the first 4 teams, right? Like Martin was saying earlier, you have City, Arsenal, like those are the top 2, right?
Yeah.
Then you have like the next group of maybe Liverpool, Villa, and Newcastle, right? And then that next group after that, in my opinion, it's all about scoring goals. Can you score enough goals to win the games, right? Like you can make it into Europe with the shitty defense. Pardon my language, right? And so
Man United did.
Yeah, exactly. So like I think Brighton have the goals, and I think that's what's it. If they can make it into Europe, it's because they have the goals, and like the bat if we let out 2 and score 4 like the old Unai, I'm cool with winning conceding 2 to score 4. Like I think that's what's going to be, and I think that's how they can do it.
They've got more firepower than Man United last year when you look at their front options. Because they relied too heavily on like Rashford and Bruno, and when they're not in the mood and they're throwing their toys out the pram, there's not many players that can do much. Whereas there's definitely right now where I look at Brighton's attack, there's too many wingers. They need to either sell one or loan a few out. But there's also, like I said before, there's a few where I'm like, they're not guys that you loan out. They're like ready to play now. So I think there's going to be a sale. I don't know who that will be, but they just looks like that. There's too many right now, and I don't think you can get everyone happy unless you have a freak amount of injuries.
So just to wrap up then. So we've got we've got a minute and 30 seconds left. There is 7 days of a transfer window left. In 33 minutes, in 23 minutes, there'll be 7 days of a transfer window left. So, in the next 7 days, what's a one transfer what you would like to see happen, and what's a one shock transfer what you think might happen? Matt, I'm taking host here. I'm hosting.
Yeah, I've gotten the host torn out of my hands.
Yeah,
I wasn't even ready. I think
I know.
I think Sterling will go to Palace, and I think they could use him. I think he'll actually low key be the Olise replacement on that side of the pitch, so they'll like do a reasonable facsimile of what they were doing last year. That's the one that I think will happen. I think talking about my own club, I think there will be a surprise forward coming in at Arsenal. Breaking during this pod was Chelsea making an agreement with Napoli to send Lukaku over there for 30 million euros. So I think you start to open the door to Osimhen to Chelsea by that deal taking place and that money shifting, which is crazy because he's coming into an absolute circus tent. But I think Arsenal will bring in a forward. I think it'll either be a really big name that we're all like, oh, or I think it'll be somebody that we found in Ben's threads that is gonna be come in and maybe score like 5 goals and 5 assists, some big ones, but kind of like a lesser known name. Ben, who do you have?
My shock one would be it just came from. I can't get it out of my head. I can't think of another one. Is Grealish to Villa, and it's kind of because I want to see it. From the sake of like, if Villa are going to do anything, they need a bit more of that star quality, and that would be a big way to get it. What would I like? There's 3 names for me for Arsenal. Osimhen. Every day that my thoughts on whether this is going to happen changes. Like every day, I can't call it anymore. So I'm just going to manage my expectation and say, oh, he's off to Chelsea. If we get him, then I'll be over the moon. And then it's Williams or it's Rafinha. One of them for me as a winger. But I'll go Williams. I think he's what I would prefer. But I don't see it happening still.
Yeah, Nigel, you asked the question.
Yeah, so I think one transfer, what I think might happen, or I think it is probably, I mean, we know about Edith Forest stuff. I think Arsenal will get a winger, and it will be a big name. I reckon it'll be a big name winger. I originally said that I thought we'd get João Pedro from Brighton. I'm kind of thinking we might go bigger than João Pedro now. But Ben, we spoke about Grealish going back to Villa before. I think Tony will leave Brentford, and I think Tony will go to Chelsea instead of Osimhen, or Manchester City on deadline day, because they won't get Kyogo Furuhashi over the line, and then they'll panic needing a.
I think you're frozen.
We lost you, Nigel.
Oh.
I'm back. Yeah, I was going to say I think that they'll panic at the end of a window because they won't have a backup for Haaland, and I think that it is a name what's been mentioned at City, and I think that Tony will go to City possibly.
Ooh, Ivan Tony to City. That's an interesting one. Lewis, surprise, and who you'd like to see?
One I'd like to see happen is I've got his shirt hanging up over there. One Brighton let go is Gyökeres to Arsenal. I'd like to see that. I think that would be a good signing for Arsenal. And
I agree.
He scored 2 today, I saw, whilst we were doing this.
Big loss, I think. But he didn't really set the world alight at Brighton, so I can kind of see why we let him go. But a shock one, no links at all. Newcastle need a winger. I've seen him linked with PSG. Ademola Lookman to Newcastle.
That would be good.
I can see them spend the money.
Is Gordon staying? Is that confirmed, basically?
I mean, that could be another shot.
Harvey Barnes might leave.
That wouldn't surprise me. I think because he's not really played, has he, since he's joined, and they spent a good amount of money on him as well.
I mean, I could definitely see him going back to Leicester on a loan or something.
He's 26. He's not getting any younger. He's going to be 27 in December, actually. He's proper old.
Where do you think he should go, Nigel?
I think Barnes could go back to Leicester, although they've just got Ayew now, so probably that's not going to happen. I just think Harvey Barnes, I think he's a good player. And I think he suits someone like a Palace or even a Tottenham. I just think he's a good winger. I would have had him at Arsenal a few years ago. When we were battling for top 4 out of Tuck Barnes, I think we're way past him now. But I just think he's a good player who could suit a team maybe from between 5th and 12th. But I just think that he's going to end up at somewhere lower than that, and I don't think it's fair on him. To be fair, I think he's a better player than that.
I could see any of the promoted clubs. Probably not Ipswich now. They've got Jack Clark. I think Southampton's probably the main one you're looking at. Need a winger.
They need a winger and they need a centre forward. They're very, very light. Very, very light. Because Che Adams went to Torino. Is it Torino he went to?
Yeah. Yes, yeah, he did.
So they've only got Armstrong. They've got Armstrong, and that's it. So yeah. I think they need more.
I'm just having a look. Maybe someone like Everton, or Wolves even, because these guys are the teams that are looking for wingers. We know that much. I'm unsure about Wolves. I know people saying about a Neto replacement, but they brought in Rodrigo Gomez, and he looks really good against us. And he plays off the left, plays off the right, so he might just be their replacement.
Carrying the ball for ages.
Yeah. He's the same. Not exactly the same, but he's very similar. And the difference is, even if he's Neto's a 8 out of 10, and he's a 7 out of 10, but he plays every game when Neto doesn't play, that's an improvement. Do you know what I mean? So I think he'll be good. But yeah, there's a few that they need another option.
Sounds good. Well, thanks for jumping on, Lewis. It was great having you on. Hopefully we can get you on again here maybe next week if you want to jump in on ahead of the Brighton Arsenal game if you're available.
Yeah,
good luck this weekend, and everybody like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on X @WeAllFollow so you never miss a beat. And thanks again for joining.